welcome back. I hope everybody's had a good lunch and a refreshment and ready for an afternoon. It's been quite a whirlwind this morning with some great presentations, and we've got a good afternoon set up for you now. We're going to kick off about business sustainability. We've got a couple of small, short presentations with a couple of my friends and myself as well, and then we're going to do a customer experience. We've got two presenters on that, and then we're going to go back to the mind and body, and we're going to really dig deep into mind and body in organizations. And finally, we're going to have a presentation about Immune. It's really a window into future offices. We are Owen, and as I speak, our other speaker is just joining us, so thank you, Adrian. So let me just give an introduction to this session. It's really about business sustainability in a work from home environment, and we're going to kick off with Adrian Dinca, who's just joined us. Hey Adrian, good to see you. He's the HR director for GBS Vertiv and GBS for Vertiv. And then we're going to have working from home, love-hate relationship, and that's going to be with my friend Mihai Arghire. I think your pronunciation is correct. A senior trainer consultant with Brightway. And then we've got some guy called Colin Lovering, who is going to give you a little presentation about some thoughts on leadership. And then we're going to dig into the customer experience section after that, which I'll introduce in a little while. So Adrian, thank you very much for joining us. The stage is yours, my friend.
So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for this session. I believe this is an essential topic in these days to discuss about how to stay productive in this period, which is completely different to the office environment. To start with, I will only spend 10 minutes discussing on this, but in the same way we could discuss for days and weeks on this topic. It has been well researched, well documented. Work from home and remote work is nothing new. It's something that's been happening for many years now across many organizations, and as said, have been researched. Therefore, I'm not planning to have a philosophical HR theoretical session, but rather to discuss on what various studies are telling us. First of all, as said, there are companies who've been doing 100% of their time work from home for more than 10 years. One example being GitLab. So what's happening these days, nothing new. It's just something forced. Also on the same side, we know that some companies have been canceling their work from home programs and forcing their employees back into work. Yahoo is one big example, Honeywell is another one, but also Best Buy, IBM even did that because of the negative impact they saw on productivity. We know that employees both before this COVID period as well as right now have been raising the issue of lack of social interaction. Studies are showing 60 to 80% of them complaining about that. We know, as per a United Nations study, that more workers are reporting higher stress levels than in office environment when they are working remote. We also know from the studies that while work-life balance improves, there is a negative impact on the mental health that as a result of isolation, various feelings of loneliness, disengagement that appear usually 9 to 12 months after, and people are not able to articulate them in the beginning. But we also know from the studies that once people start doing work from home, 90% of them want to keep on doing work from home. Okay, going forward, we know from the studies that productivity has been improving across organizations, but we know that the key reason why this has happened is because people are focusing more on tasks and less on building relationship. We know that there is a negative impact on productivity that usually hits the companies about 1 year after, and it's been discussed in PublicMed, in Harvard Business Review. And we also know that the category of population struggling with productivity is the people in their 20s who were used to a lot to the informal office environment. We also know that building exposure for those career-driven people is more complex and more difficult in remote work. I mean, you don't get a chance to be seen as in the office. I personally spend quite some time doing interviews with various shared service center leaders, more than 10 in Romania for now. What I know is across our service centers, there is higher productivity reported by the frontline workers. I also heard a lot that our management teams are overloaded. They are spending much more time in meetings. Breaks are no longer respected when people are working from home. Many are working without limits, if I can say like that, which opens some other challenges, including staying fit. The lines between work and personal life are a little bit blurry. And there are also various distractions, pets, children, and many other things. The neighbor with a drilling machine that, or the internet connection that have been impacting it. In terms of tips and tricks, a lot of research is pointing to the importance, and the companies who've been successful, they found ways to make what used to be informal, formal, meaning block meetings for socializing. Actually, there is a study that teams who spend at least 15 minutes in socializing have a 20%, 15 minutes per day, socializing have a 20% increase in performance. It's essential in this period to manage your meetings. A lot have been written over the last months on this topic, but also in the previous years. They have become a problem. Managers are struggling with managing all kinds of different stakeholders and aligning them. It's essential to focus on the basics, from action items, minutes of the meetings, learn to make your meetings shorter, learn to say no in polite, nice ways, like making counter offers. Planning has become essential, like pre-booking breaks, planning your day and your week ahead. Studies are showing that people are more productive when they have their own corner for work, where they work, even if it's in the living room, it doesn't matter, but just make sure you have the same place from which you're working. Physical exercise, spending time outdoor is essential, especially in a period where many are no longer leaving their house. And a lot of effort, from my opinion, should be put on educating your teams and our organization about the mental health impact. In terms of next steps or my proposal, first of all, I believe everyone should enjoy remote work. 90% of us don't want to go back to the office. And again, this 90% is a study done before COVID. And right now there is a little bit of anxiety, so maybe the situation is not the same, but we know that fully in the office, 90% of the people don't want to come. Please take care of yourself. Please remember that your productivity is not measured in terms of hours work, and reflect on that. I think it's essential that we take care of the people around us by becoming an expert in remote work and coaching others on it. There are some fantastic podcasts out there, one of them being Skills for Marks, on remote work, the pluses and minuses, and how to be successful at it. And I believe it's also essential that we take care of our own companies. By that, I mean, we need to rethink how we engage people beyond the classic virtual coffee. How do we organize meetings, town halls? Everything, for example, has to be more often, has to involve more connection. How do we focus more on leveraging video, the connections, more touch points with the people in this period? The good part is that there are companies who went through this struggle and they have solution. One of them, which I invite you to Google, is GitLab. They actually put all the remote work practices online, which they have been doing for the last 10 years. So if you Google GitLab remote playbook, you'll be able to find their entire HR manual on how to get it right. Maybe you don't copy paste it, but to a large extent, it was an influence, at least for me. And I also believe that focusing on resilience, mindfulness, but also effective work from home trainings is a must, not just because of remote work, but because of also the added complexity of COVID and what has been happening. Thank you for your time. That was my presentation. If you have any more specific questions, or if there's anything that I could help you with, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Adrian. I do have a question for you. I won't give you a tough question because you may get thrown back on me when I'm doing mine. But you gave a very sort of quantitative research results there, which in some ways in contrast with the qualitative information that we're getting. It is part of the reason for that is that the sense of freedom and option is very important for young people. And when they say, you know, do you enjoy working from home? Maybe there's a fear that if people say, no, I want to go back to the office, going back to the office would take away the flexibility that they have right now. Is there a little bit of that involved as well that we need to address?
Absolutely. So if I'm looking at the younger workers, they miss a lot of elements from the office. They miss all this, especially the socialization. They don't do it. They don't have these habits. They lack discipline. They lack routines. The routine of waking up at 7 a.m. to do a little bit of sport, take care of your breakfast and then start. Some of them don't have the right environments. Not everyone can afford the 3 rooms bedroom where they are working from the living room. Some are working in more complex environments. However, even with this complexity added to them and to this age, they love this. They love being able to work from their parents' house for 1 week, or the fact that they don't need to spend their time commuting many times from a long distance, more than 1 hour, even here in Cluj-Napoca. So I believe people are saying in the studies that 90% of them don't want to get back to full-time work from office, but only 30 or 20% of them would like to stay full-time work from home. So people right now, but also historically, tend to say that somewhere in between, somewhere where they also see themselves a little bit, they connect, they make some jokes, they go for a coffee break, would be great to help them. But after this period and after the lockdown, for sure.
Okay, well, I guess you could say it's a kind of love-hate relationship, which I guess is a perfect link to Mihai. Mihai, tell us about the love-hate relationship of working from home. And Adrian, we'll come back at the end with any questions. Mihai, all yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad to be here with you. Well, my presentation, as you said, is entitled Working from Home, a Love-Hate Relationship. And why a love-hate relationship? Because as Adrian stated before, and we all know it, sometimes we enjoy working from home, but sometimes actually we see the cons. Maybe we like spending more time with the family, but on the other hand, we are socializing with fewer people. And actually on the slide was written too much time with the family, but my wife entered and corrected this one. So we have pros and cons. We are eliminating the time commuting to work, but in the same time we are being stuck in the same environment. And the list can go on. And the question is, what can we do? What is our compass as managers, as leaders inside an organization? And what I invite you to do is to find what is the most important thing and to find priorities in both personal and professional life. And I invite you to, I challenge you, in fact, to do an interactive exercise with me, even if it's actually a one-way communication channel. But I invite you to take a piece of paper. It doesn't matter the size. It can be a post-it page in your agenda, and it doesn't matter the size, but everyone should have a piece of paper. And fold it into half. And the exercise works only if you do it in the same time with me. So I invite you, I challenge you to take a piece of paper, fold it into half. After that, fold it again into half. So the purpose is to have 4 quadrants, just like this. And we will put a number into each quadrant, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It doesn't matter the order, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I invite you to do is to think about the most important thing in your life. And when I mean thing, it doesn't have to be material thing. It can be a person, a passion, a value, or whatever. And in the first quadrant, when you put it number 1, please write the most important thing in your life. In the second quadrant, think about the second most important thing in your life. In the third quadrant, the third most important, and in the fourth quadrant, the fourth more important. So basically, we will have the 4 most important things in life. And I will do the exercise with you. We will not evidently share it with anyone. So the thing is, what is important is that everyone should write one element the first quadrant, the first most important, second, third, and fourth most important. And please look to your quadrants and look closely to the fourth quadrant, the fourth most important thing in your life right now. And I invite you to rip it off, only the fourth. So we will rip off the fourth quadrant, we will fold it and throw it to the trash. Only the fourth quadrant. So everybody, it's important to do this exercise together with me. Now we are left with three more most important things in your life, and I invite you to look to the third quadrant and look closely because it's your third most important thing, and rip it off, fold it, and throw it to the trash. So we are left with only two, and maybe things are getting a little bit tough because the two are the most important things in your life. And we're gonna do the same thing with the second quadrant. So it's the second most important thing in your life, and we're gonna fold it, and everybody should throw it to the trash. And now we're left only with one. And I promise you this quadrant we will not rip off, we will not fold it, but instead I invite you to think at the following. When we are caught up in stress, when we do overtime work because the day has only 24 hours, when we do not have enough energy because we are consumed about the relationship, love and hate at working from home, who do you think we sacrifice? Is maybe the most important thing in our life, doesn't matter what you written there. And taking this into consideration, let's move to what one of our surveys showed. And I will bring up the screen again. We did a survey with almost 150 companies about can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we did a survey about my presentation was stuck. About what actually are the people's needs and what are the organizational needs. So we asked 150 companies about the most important, the top priorities in people needs inside the organization. And what we found was this. It's not a scientific study, it's just an analysis that we did on our customers. So we found, and no surprise here, that connection is a need that is very important. So what you can do is actually organize informal online meetings, use video, create the context for a better communication between peers. Also, the second was support in dealing with emotional challenges. And here, you know, venting out can sometimes help a lot. And do not forget that people need to talk about the challenges they're into. And they need someone to turn to ask for help, and also emotional assertiveness knowledge. And the third one was recognition, and also no surprise here, because as we move apart from each other and talk online, recognition is harder than in a daily office day. So what you can do is empower middle management to facilitate feedback session and ask yourself, when was the last time you appreciate people around you? And on the other hand, we have the business needs. So in this love and hate relationship are involved also the people and also the business. And what we found here, that the top three priorities are the following. The first one is monitor and ensure performance remote. So what businesses must do, and it's basically a must, is to adapt KPIs and have clear goals. Also to engage people and create the context for motivation. The second one was more agility, and what businesses can do is learn how to implement agile and lean methodologies, and actually is not actually something only for leaders, but also it's a thing that you can spread across the organization, and people should be more agile. And the third one was reinventing some of the services and processes from scratch. And we ask ourselves the following question. Okay, you can take information from this study and also from other studies that are available to you. But in all of this information, what is our suitable answer for us and for our team? And I want to end my speech with an anecdote. And the anecdote is about an entrepreneur that dreamed to be a millionaire, and with the COVID crisis, had a lot of trouble with the business. So actually, he was in the verge of bankruptcy. He was desperate. And talking to a friend, the friend told him, look, I know someone who can help you. And it's a wise man that allegedly had a lot of success in life. And now he's retreated in the mountains in a small cabin. And if you want, you can go to him for help. And our entrepreneur, being skeptical but also desperate, decided to do it and climbed the mountain, reached to the cabin. He saw a small opening on the door of the cabin, a small shutter, and below a label. Knock 3 times, ask your question, and you will receive the answer. So our entrepreneur does just this and tells the story of his business, asks the question, okay, wise man, how can I overcome the pandemic challenges and make my business profitable again? Opens the door, and the wise man was mute. And the only thing he can see is 2 eyes staring, bored, impassive at him. So actually he closes the door a little bit amused, but in a few seconds he had a revelation. Maybe this is not a stupid thing. Maybe the wise man is right. And maybe I am too passive about my business. And I am waiting for a solution from the external point of view instead of working and taking what is mine. So he goes back to the business. He dedicates to the business. He gathers the smart people around and reinvents some products, services, and the business becomes profitable again. But after a while, he realizes that with the current growth rate, he will become a market leader in 100 years. So he goes back to the wise man and he asks another question. Okay, wise man, how can I become #1 in my activity? And he knocks 3 times. He's opening the small door, and all he sees this time, because he knew how things work, all he sees are 2 eyes staring sad and almost lifeless at him. So he realized immediately that he worked too much. He dedicated only to the business, but he had no family and lost connection with friends. So he goes back, he dedicates more time to make relationship, to give back to the community and make business connections. And after a while, he starts a family. And after a while, a flood of referrals start flooding in. So the business grows exponentially and he becomes a market leader, but still not a millionaire. So he thinks, what should I do? Goes back to the wise man and asks a last question. Wise man, how can I become a millionaire? And knocks 3 times, opens the door, and this time he sees 2 eyes which are determined but frustrated and very bitter. So he realizes that in all this time he was juggling between work and the personal life, but forgot about the journey and only thought of goals. So he goes back, he relaxes, he enjoys life, he takes time for himself. And as a wonder, in a few days, he just felt he was blind until that moment. So he sees some strategic decisions to make and signs a contract and becomes a millionaire. So this time he wanted to really thank the wise man and goes back to the mountain, but he wasn't happy just to knock at the door and see just the eyes. He wanted to open the whole door so he can shake a hand. But what a surprise, when he opened the door, the only thing he sees is just a mirror. So what I invite you to do, besides taking data from studies and from maybe other people's experience, just think of your own answer and always challenge the status quo. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. What can I say? Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. So a good story for us all there. I think what we'll do, Mihai, is go on to the next presentation, which is me, and then we'll have a little bit of time for any questions that are coming through on the platform. So if you could stop your screen share, that would be great, please. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the question. Is my slide up on the screen?
Yes,
it is. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, this is a bit weird, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, I'm introducing myself. So hello, Colin, and thank you for being with us. It's my pleasure, says Colin back. And it was really interesting to, through the whole conference so far, to listen to all this conversation about the challenges of working from home in particular. And I want to touch a little bit on leadership, if I may. And I just want to take this 10 minutes to sort of share with you what research is telling us, the top 2 skills that leaders need to learn and embrace for 2021. I'm going to touch a little bit on emotional intelligence and leadership. And it was interesting listening to Adrian there as well, and talking about a little bit of that in terms of communication and everything else. So let me share a little bit of this with you. Now, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks is an expression in England. Well, they can with this one, because I recently graduated proudly from the Genos University as a qualified practitioner in emotional intelligence. And that's a little bit I want to share with you to start with. And I did it basically for 2 reasons, really to better understand what emotional intelligence is, and also to be a better business performance coach that I am, and see how leadership is changing before and through COVID-19 pandemic, and just helping leaders and potential leaders navigate their way through the change. And it's quite interesting that when you look at 2 or 3 years ago, there was a big emphasis on motivating people through employment, motivating people in terms of retention policies or challenges, and just the motivation. And of course, when you do something too much, people become almost immune to that. And fast forward where we are today, I think one thing we've learned through COVID is about emotional intelligence and about the need to build stronger, more collaborative and personal relationship as leaders with our people. So really talk about inspiring people is key. And the Genos platform is actually an ideal way to help me navigate through, just touching on a few areas of what emotional intelligence is. And it's basically split into 6 key categories. We have self-awareness, which is about being aware of the way that you feel and the impact your feelings have on decision making. And while I'm telling you this, ladies and gentlemen, we just mentioned about the story of Mihai with the mirror. Keep that mirror in front of you if you can do that, and really sort of think about, in terms of your leadership, where you are on these. Awareness of others is about perceiving, understanding and acknowledging the way others feel. This is the empathy part, which is so crucial. This is my favorite. Authenticity is about openly and effectively expressing oneself, honoring commitments and encouraging the behavior of others. A very powerful part of the emotional intelligence armory. Emotional reasoning is about using the information in feelings from yourself to others. How do you feel about that? Using that emotion to get your influence and get your point across, but also encouraging other people's points of view. The self-management is self-explanatory. It's really about managing your own mood, emotions, time and behavior, and continuously looking to improve yourself, like the old dog has here, by improving my emotional intelligence, which has already had a big impact on my professional, but my personal life as well. And finally, the positive influence is really about positively influencing the way others feel through problem solving, providing feedback, and recognizing the support in others. So when you look at that, and if we look at the strengths and weakness, so look over to the left-hand side, unproductive states. So if you don't have that self-awareness, you will come over. They say perception is reality. If somebody thinks you're disconnected, you're disconnected. If somebody thinks you're insensitive, the awareness of others, you're probably insensitive. If somebody thinks you're untrustworthy, it's your authenticity is not shining through. If they think you're fairly limited in way they talk to you and they find it quite challenging, it's your emotional reasoning that's at stake there. And if they find you temperamental, not sure which Colin is going to walk in the office each morning, that is the way that our self-management. And finally, they just find you indifferent. It's that positive influence. Is it carrot or stick, or what is the technique here? The consistency is going. And then on the positive side, I'm not going to dwell too much on these, but it's really about being very present. I mentioned that word empathy. That is such a key part of today's world. And in terms of, we saw a presentation yesterday about attrition rates, that they plummeted through COVID. Well, if we go back to a normal environment, are they going to go back up to where they were? Or is this a window of opportunity to really look in that mirror, look at our leadership skills and how people see us? We're in the process in Reinventing doing a lot of 360 discoveries, if you like, with organizations, and really helping in a subtle way and a genuine way to uncover this. So that genuine authenticity, that it's consistent with everything he says, everything she says is very consistent and very expansive. It's not a quick, the old manager style. It's very much a coach mentor style. So we're really sort of elaborating and helping people to be creative and really sort of checking on ourselves every single time, every meeting we have. My advice is every single meeting you have with a colleague, with a client, whoever it is, when that meeting is finished and they've gone out of your office or you've left them, think, I wonder what they're thinking about me right now. And the response will be an emotional one. It'll be about their feelings, about the way that you manage that, not so much about the specific content, which is important, but it can be destroyed, if you like. It's a little bit like a good joke. How many times have you heard a good joke destroyed by somebody who tells it badly? The same logic applies. And then the final thing is just about empowerment. Really, to me, a great manager surrounds themselves with people much more clever than they are. That's when you become a really strong manager. So that's a little bit about the emotional intelligence. I have to keep on time because I'm telling everybody else to. So I'm going to move on to very quickly, which is another part of the Reinventing portfolio and a very sort of one of the founding parts of it, legacy leadership. And I want to mention this because the concept of legacy leadership has changed over the last 12 months. And I just want to discuss this a little bit. I've discovered two, there's various types of leaders, but two prominent ones that spring to mind for me, that are those who've naturally and successfully transitioned into leadership, and those who've inherited it through promotion. And anyone who's been in that second category knows what I mean was, when you're performing very well, you become the natural choice for that promotion. And maybe rightly so, but then we transform into that leadership role. And for the first few weeks, we're on a roll. We've got the passion, the enthusiasm. We're kind of still behaving like we were as a high-performing salesperson or whatever position that was. And then we hit this brick wall because we realize the sustainability of our leadership, our style is much deeper than we first imagined. We can't rely on what we were relying anymore. So for me, this is where emotional intelligence and leadership and creating that leadership style and legacy continues for me, long after you've left the organization. So again, I'm just conscious of time. I just want to finish off by giving you a little bit of a definition of what legacy leadership is. If you influence change in the lives of those around you, you are engaged in leadership. Your leadership legacy is the sum total of the difference you make in people's lives, directly and indirectly, formally and informally. As a leader, you will have an impact on your staff and will take what they learn forward into the future of your organization. So you're creating a leadership culture that's there even after you've gone. The challenge is how to live in a way that creates a legacy that you can make a positive difference in the lives of those around you. And my final question to you all is, how do you want to be remembered? Thank you. I think I'm on time. I did well there, Mihai and Adrian. So what we do, I'll come off slide share, and let me just do that, and then I guess we'll take questions. But guys, have we got any questions for each other as we're in this little party together?
Well, I got a question for you because I found your presentation and the theme interesting. You come from a different culture, and I'm curious, how did you find the relationship between Romanian managers and leaders and the concepts of legacy and emotional intelligence?
It's a great question, and I'm going to be authentic because I have to be, and give you a very authentic and honest answer. When I first came to Romania 11 years ago, I actually thought people were being, and I'll say the word, I thought people were being rude to me, because as a Brit, we're very wishy-washy in our emotions. We find it very difficult if somebody says, do you like my jacket? We find it very difficult to say no if we don't. We have to find some other way of answering the question. So when I came here, I found that people were being very direct with me. And as that sort of culture, I found it difficult. And then I quickly realized that it was about efficiency and directness, which is something, I'm trying to answer the question well if I can, is something that I've learned a lot about myself. So I think in terms of the culture, that combination of that Romanian efficiency coupled with my more customer orientated, bit wishy-washy, but more emotional world, combining those two has been good. And what I've discovered, I think, over the years is, I think I said it yesterday, that the Romanian culture and the British culture is actually very similar in terms of our sense of humor. I always say that our sense of sarcasm is very similar, except the Romanian sarcasm is much darker and deeper than mine. But I think it's that. So there hasn't been a lot of differences. I think it's just that adaptability and the cross-cultural experiences that Romania has been really embracing, I think, over the last few years. As an expat, there's no better country to live in than Romania. Everybody is welcoming to you. So I think we've learned something from each other's cultures in many ways. Did that answer your question? I'm not sure.
Yeah. It was more like an invitation to
yeah,
comment.
sure.
If I may ask you a different question, I'm curious about the first part of your presentation and about the various levels you are talking about. Is there any way we could self-assess each other on that? Any trainings, any way to get for each of us to get a better in-depth perspective? I mean, as a HR, I always love to see.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Adrian, and I should pay you for that question, because yes, part of what I didn't want to do too much of a sales pitch, but with the Brain of 8 model and with the emotional intelligence, which my great colleague Alina is leading, we can actually do that. So we can come into any organization and do that 360, and then we can coach off. It's a great coaching tool because it's what people are really saying about themselves and what their peers are saying. And we know, Adrian and Andre, it's, sometimes we as leaders, we can preach and teach and influence, but the greatest learning that people have, I think, is from their peers. And the more that we can encourage that, the more better that people will feel comfortable with taking that step forward in their personal development. So in answer to that, yes. And if anybody wants to drop me a line, and I'll send you through the information, and we can do that pretty quickly. So thank you for allowing me to do something I was reluctant in doing, a bit of a sales pitch. So thank you, my friend. Thank you. I've got a question for you guys, actually. It's really about going back to the work from home. And it's really about the winter coming up. We're seeing stories, I'm seeing stories in the UK of this acceleration in coronavirus cases. We're into that winter season, talking about options that we were talking about before. What part of those options was to be able to go out into the sunshine and walk in the park and stretch our legs and enjoy that part of the year. Now that is being taken away. How would you think that's going to affect the emotional state of people who are kind of almost forced to work from home, if I can use that strong word, and until we get to that stage where we have that flexibility of working from home or the office, which I think is a very different dynamic. Mihai, do you want to take that first, and then we'll pass it over to.
Yeah, actually, it's a topic on a lot of managers' minds because, as you said, winter is coming and pressure is building up, not only because we do not have the possibility to go out in the park, but also because maybe some economical pressure or sanitary conditions are worsening. And I think emotionally people will feel that, and our role as managers can be to maybe create opportunities and context for people to socialize. And I think it was a topic also in many presentations here at the conference, how you can make the context for people to communicate, even if it's maybe not that great team building or that great interaction at the office, but do it online, do something, because if you do nothing, the emotional state will only go worse and the motivation will go down, and effectively it will impact the productivity. I mean, it will have a direct impact. So yeah, it's up to us to do something.
Okay, so create milestones. Adrian, I think we've got Christmas parties that are probably not going to happen, or maybe online. Team building events. They're all things that people socially do look forward to. Not much to look forward to in that respect, unless we can be creative, I guess.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I'm seeing a lot of creativity coming from the organization. While we cannot do this Christmas party, all this nice stuff that was bringing people together, there are other things that people are doing. For example, they are spending time on charity. There are ways to do charity remote, to donate certain amounts to various organizations, to have them connect you, the company, directly with the children, for children who will benefit those. So it's not the same. Definitely, it's a different feeling, but I would put it in between. So there are many things that we can do. There are ways of celebrating ourselves. I mean, look at my background. For Halloween, I had a different background. There is a different reality that we can take advantage of that, and the same for the Christmas and others. So I'm seeing a lot of experiments coming from the company in this direction. I think this is good, but it's on the same side, a major concern. I mean, traditionally, autumn, winter were associated with higher depression levels and more some mental health impact. Right now, with all this situation, it will have some impact. So I'm personally encouraging everyone to focus on mindfulness. While lockdowns and advice is to stay in house in the home as much as possible, 10-15 minutes of walk outside with a mask on, I fully recommend it. And our health and safety department across our plants, same thing, fully recommends it. So not full lockdown. It's not perfect. As we've seen, I mean, these periods come in spikes, so I would expect sooner or later in 1 month, that the restrictions will be lifted. But until they are lifted, I think there are small things that we should pay attention and continue to do, and they will help us all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, I think that one of the things that we can do is the three of us can have a beer at some time when it's possible, and I look forward to that. But in the meantime, thank you very much to both of you. And ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna click straight over to the next presentation where we're actually going to get into the customer service experience. So again, thank you very much, gentlemen, and see you.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mihai. Bye-bye.
Bye.